You looks like you're sitting out.
Yep,
Okay.
it'll be paused.
Okay. Let's see.
They're landscaping across the street today. It looks so nice, you guys.
Yeah, really cleaned up the neighborhood, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
almost all of it.
Okay.
You want me to pause the meeting?
I don't know. Todd, you want to take it away? I don't see anybody else in the waiting room, so this may be it.
Oh, you want me to run this one?
Yeah.
Let me get your agenda out there. All right, where were
What is
we?
the agenda?
Study of information, okay, attachment minutes. All right. So review timeline.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the timeline is, I don't know if anybody's printed out this. This is all, by the way, on the Cornwall website.
If you can find it.
Some documents for anybody who's wondering. So we're gonna, May 17th is the Board of Selectmen's approval date. I guess that's at your what, your meeting, your selectmen
A
meeting?
regular
Gordon?
meeting, yeah. We have to approve some resolutions that have been drafted for us. Yeah, which will do a couple things. One, it will set the date of the town meeting and the referendum. Two, it will adjourn the town meeting to a referendum vote as opposed to an in-person vote. And we'll, we do something else too, but anyway, that basically sets legally the town meeting and process going.
Right, I saw that in the notes sent by, what is it, Pullman? What's the name of that firm? That
Yeah, Pullman and somebody.
is that a private law firm or is that somehow connected to the state? That
No,
group?
it's all private. And it's our actual bound counsel is named Joe Fozzie. And
Right.
he actually did the school bond 20 years ago. So, or 20 something years ago. So he was in private practice. Now he has worked his way into another company. So he knows. He also did the bond work, I think, for Kent sidewalks. So, I mean, he knows the process in and out.
Yeah, yeah. Because there are quite a few T's to cross and I's to dot as you go towards this whole thing, isn't there?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So then May 19th would be the Board of Finance approval.
Yes.
And then June 11th, just before our so-called scheduled next meeting for this group, there's an informational meeting via Zoom, and that's town-wide. Is that the
Yeah.
idea?
Absolutely. So again, we'll publicize that. We've got the 3-page insert set to go into the June Chronicle, the explanatory text. So that will be in the June Chronicle. And again, that will be via Zoom, just so that everybody that wants to do remote can jump in, and then the town meeting itself in person on the 25th will be in person. It will not be a Zoom interactive, although it would be good if Richard could record it. Great.
So at your selectmen meeting where you're saying you're going to turn the town meeting into a non-in-person meeting, is that relative to this June 25th or no?
Yeah, the town meeting as it's set is to be in person, so that'll be at the school in person. But there will be no vote taken at that meeting.
No vote, okay.
So it's for the people that like to do things in person. And again, it will be mostly debating the resolution, whether to pass the project or not. I view the meeting on the 11th as being a little more presentation, perhaps. Certainly needs to be presentations at both meetings, but, you know, again, going over, maybe Todd will get together, but Todd could go over the history of the project, the, you know, history of the committee, where we're at this point, and then Steve can go over the technical aspect of what he's actually proposing, and then we'll have some financial review as far as cost and how, you know, how does this impact the town financially, and probably Joe Pryor or Barbara Herbst can deal with that, and then I'll deal with any questions that sort of go, you know, my way through the cracks. So I would say those would be the main focus of the meeting on the 11th would be those presentations, which would be fairly brief, and then a lot of, you know, opportunity for dialogue input would be generally how things work. We got David Delinsky in the waiting room.
Oh, wow, it's been a long time.
Okay.
Cool.
Would it be fair to say that the June 11th informational meeting is somewhat informal? I don't want to say not a legitimate meeting, but it's there's no vote that takes place. There's still rules that are followed and some formalities, but it's a little less formal in that there is no vote or conclusion. And that
Yeah,
the
even at the town meeting, there'll be a moderator, which there won't be necessarily. I mean, I suppose I'll be acting as a moderator on the 11th, but it's not, doesn't have the procedural boundaries of a town meeting. And again, it's basically to hear what people have to say and for them to hear what the committee has to say. So yeah, I mean, it doesn't have the weight of a town meeting, but it's certainly another opportunity for people to ask questions, for us to, and then in theory, if they have questions that we don't know the exact answer to, we could offer those answers at the town meeting 2 weeks later, once we sharpen the pencil or whatever.
Okay.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, David. You have to unmute yourself, Dave. Unmute. You know the mute button?
So,
Okay. Yeah, so May 17th, May 19th, June 11th, June 25th, and then July 9th, the actual voting day. 12 to 8.
right, town hall.
Vera's managing that portion of things.
Yeah. And there will be, as we know, there's the information about absentee ballots and things in the Chronicle.
Right.
So, you know, that's,
So the town meeting is adjourned. Somehow there's a vote that takes place that adjourns the town meeting to a referendum vote. Is that how that process?
no, the
That's done
selectmen,
automatically.
no, the selectmen have to vote. That's one of the things we vote on the 17th, is to adjourn it to referendum. So people will know when they attend on the 25th that they're not voting, they're just talking. And that also lets people know what date the vote is. so that they can get absentee ballots if they're not going to be in town. But there's no vote taken because it's, people can petition. People can legally petition to take a town meeting item to a referendum, or the selectmen can vote to do that if they feel it's a significant enough issue to require a ballot process plus absentee ballots, which this day and age are there real.
The referendum vote will already be in play and be put into play at the selectmen's meeting on the 17th.
Right. 7 weeks before the actual vote, we will ink all those documents.
So I had a question on the informational, I'm not sure what you had a name for it, the document that lists all the information.
Explanatory text.
Explanatory text, yeah.
Yeah.
I had a comment about that. I'm not sure when in this meeting that should take place.
Say it again, Richard, it was a little muffled in the beginning.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure when a comment about the explanatory text should take place, or whether that's already more or less set in stone.
That's pretty well set in stone, because in order to publish any kind of publicity about this, apparently we have to get state approval, and that's happened. So, the council's reviewed it. He submits to the state's approved it again ahead of time. It's kind of awkward and unfamiliar, but apparently in order to borrow money, you have to go through this process, and also towns cannot add, they cannot tell people how to vote. So they have to make sure it's strictly factual as best as it can be. So those approvals have been made, so we're not really in a position to alter that. And plus the committee did approve it last.
Yeah, we voted on it last meeting.
It's a lot of, just a lot of formalities and work to get to this point. So it doesn't mean people can't question the statement that at any one of these meetings coming up, but we have to get approval for what we put out.
Hey, Gordon, can you text Steve to see if he's on trying to get in or having trouble getting in? 'Cause I think our next agenda item is Steve.
Yeah, let me hold on. I'll try to give him a call.
It's certainly possible on such a beautiful day like today that
Fishing.
right, or just outside. Yeah.
Don't blame him.
Hey, Todd, I've got a couple questions. People asked me, should I ask you, and I don't know if they have to be answered today. Do you want me to say them to you now while Gordon's doing that, or just hold off? They're nothing.
Yeah, I mean, to the extent I can answer them, I'd be more than
Yeah.
happy to, but are they for the engineer? Go ahead.
This one I think you might know. One of the people said that, well, it's going to cost me $3,500 to hook up, and I said, yeah, that's the number. But that doesn't, I don't think that includes from your house though, right? I thought that was not part of the figure. I mean, they have to buy their own pipe or whatever it is to hook it up.
Yeah, so these are the kinds of questions that first of all, not completely set in stone, I don't think, the numbers, although that number has been floated around. And as to what it specifically entitles you to, I can't answer that.
Okay. And
I think it gives you the privilege or the right to be connected to the system.
right.
I do think it's your own obligation to
Yeah.
connect from your cellar or your
Yeah.
your discharge pipe to the street,
I
to
think,
wherever the main is going by, now whether
Right.
that's in the street or in the sidewalk or partially through some property, whatever. I think it is the property owner's obligation
to hook up, yeah.
to,
It
yeah,
seemed like we discussed that in a meeting a long time ago. And that was, I think that was I didn't want to say for sure to them, but I said, I think you have to get yourself to it. It'll be on the street, but you have to get yourself to it. So, people ask me about the site 100 times. I said, I
Right,
don't.
right, yeah.
And then
Well, that's,
about, the last one, the only other question was if there's an annual budget of $100,000 to run it. Is that the customers of it? Do they pay, or the town pays it, I guess? But is it bounced back to the customers, or?
there will be customer usage fees,
Right,
but,
there's nothing yet as of now that we know of, right? I didn't think there was.
I don't think I've seen any numbers. Even that, as I said, even that $3,500 number, I don't think is a finalized number.
Oh, okay. That was it. Those were the three questions.
But once again, that's not something I know for sure. So we
Yeah.
might want to revisit that at some point. But-
Right. And probably by those informational meetings, we'll have more of it anyway, so.
Right, right.
Or we should.
Yeah.
So I got Steve on the phone.
Oh, good.
I have the link to the meeting, but can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Can you-
I can.
I can tell you some other interesting factoids about another project we were involved with in Winstead. Right now, it looks like we might be looking at what we call a low pressure system, where every connected home is going to have a pump that pumps into the system. And in the Winstead system around Highland Lake, those pumps were actually owned by the sewer district. And the reason they did that was because they got a USDA grant for half the cost of the entire system, including the pipeline that goes from the road out to the house and the pump. If, in fact, the town or the Water Pollution Control Authority or whoever maintains the system remained responsible for the ownership and the maintenance of those things. So that's still, to my mind, that still could be determined depending on if you're getting additional funding from the USDA or not.
oh, that's good.
So there's a potential to get people pretty much, they still might have to connect up their house to the pump, which is like 5 feet or 10 feet or, kind of thing. But there is a possibility that we can get more of this paid for via grants.
Right.
And by the way, we are now have all the paperwork and we're resubmitting the grant application
To USDA.
to USDA.
So I guess the answer to that, Don, is possible. And again, we're going to try to get as many grants as possible to make this
Right.
as painless as possible. Back to the maintenance $100,000 budget, which may be less if we don't have full utilization at the start. The thought is that that the town would backstop that. So say, we collected $20,000 or so of annual fees from the users, then the town would be on the hook for the other 80,000. So whatever gets charged and what we have talked about is what is average for the area, because every sewer district in the area, people pay something. Now there's no standard formula, but we don't want to make this obviously is going to have some user participation. But we're not going to go to, on the far end, because then nobody's going to sign up. So, but those fees would go only back into the operating of the thing. And again, the site issue, we're going to look, I think, as it says in the text, look in the village of West Cornwall, but until Steve really does his engineering, we can't tell at this point what the site is.
Okay, Thanks.
So,
Okay, those were the ones that people have been
And-
throwing at me.
right,
so-
and I'm sure, I mean, and I hope at the information meeting that Steve will say some of these real life experiences as far as what is going on, because every year is different, but having somebody that's designed something on a much bigger scale than what we're talking about here and knowing how it played out in real time, I think is really important.
Thanks.
Gordon, on this same topic, just refresh my memory about this $3,500 hookup fee, which in essence isn't really so much a hookup fee as a membership opportunity cost, because it doesn't really hook you up to anything. Is that correct, or am I
Well, it enables
misunderstanding?
you to access the system. Yeah, if you want to call it, you can call it a membership fee or whatever, but it allows people to access the system. And those, again, we did do some sort of survey of surrounding towns, and that seemed to be a somewhat average figure to access the system on top of the annual charges. How much is it? What's the one fee to?
Now, you at one point suggested that early sign up would entitle you to a lower hookup fee. Is that something you're continuing
I
to think
we
about?
would probably, I mean, I think you can obviously say that because it would cost for everything are going up so much. And if people are going to do projects, it's probably going to cost you less to do it now than it will in 3 years. Plus, if we are able to pull off something like Steve is talking about, I'm sure those grants for the hookup would happen only to the initial people, not the people that come down the road. I mean, I don't think those things usually last forever.
Right.
That's correct.
In most places, I mean, am I wrong, Steve? I think most of these projects are sort of mandatory. You hook up, there's not a whole lot of discussion whether you're going to do it or not. And we're a little unusual in that we're giving people an option not to hook up if they don't want to hook up.
Yeah, normally it's pretty much mandatory.
Yeah.
Because the reason that people are putting the sewers in is to resolve the wastewater disposal issue and potential, sewage contamination issues. So if we're in, we're going to solve it.
Yeah.
Means let's hook up and solve.
Right, but there are a lot of systems in West Cornwall that are functioning just fine.
Well,
I disagree with that, Todd. For one thing,
What about the restaurant just got put in? That can't be assumed to not be good.
the restaurant is obviously an outlier, and there are places that are recently installed, but I think it's very instructive to reread the letter that the Torrey Area Health District put in when we put in for the federal grant. I mean, they were pretty much saying the majority of systems in the village have issues. And I think they were even, more precise than that. So I think that may be one of the pieces of information that gets presented.
Yeah, but a homeowner isn't going to spend money on a system that hasn't been deemed as failing. Even though it might not be state of the art, still not failing. I mean, unless somebody tells you it's failing.
I can chime in on that also. Can I relate a life experience? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
In Winstead, for example, around Highland Lake, obviously there were people that lived around the lakes that said, wait a minute, I have a brand new system, and why should I have to connect?
Right.
And the solution was to say, okay, if you've got an up-to-date approved health code system that meets the health code, then, and you've had your system pumped out, and you can prove that, then you don't have to connect up initially. You may have to connect up after a period of years. I can pretty much tell you that there are very few systems in West Cornwall that meet the health code. And I think that's been told to you by the health district. And based on the size of the lots, it's virtually impossible to install a health code size system. Not to say it's going to fail physically, where you have sewage on the ground surface, but sewage is crossing property lines and potentially impacting, and certainly the impact in the groundwater, potentially the Housatonic River. So I can
and
tell you that,
wells.
but point
Yeah.
being is that, you know, the system's up there, they're installing what they can install. In the case of the restaurant, that's got to meet the current health code. There's no way they'd let them put that in without a current health code system, a new system. But if you're doing a repair, basically what they do is they put in the best they can do on the lot. Most of the time it does not meet the health code, but it's the best they can do. They can't kick someone out of their house.
And they won't let you open a restaurant if you have one of those underperforming systems.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely, I guarantee it.
So,
It's good that we're talking about this now, because this is almost certain to be a subject of conversation, particularly with people in West Cornwall, of which I am one. And I mean, you open up a little bit of a can of worms with this subject of forced hookup. I mean, how are you going to recommend or enforce that a homeowner with a functioning system hook up?
I don't think we've ever,
Pay the hookup fee.
I don't think we're going to force anybody to do it, but if they want to use the system, they've got to pay.
Right. No, I know about the want to use
no.
portion of things. I'm talking more about the suggestion that hooking up, when do you actually hook up? I mean, the earlier the better kind of thing, not hook up, but pay that potential hookup fee. Or
Well-
what are you calling it? A membership fee? I don't know.
Well,
what
what-
you call it.
I'd call it an access fee.
Access.
Well, what-
I think
this
that's
is
a good
way-
term.
This is way, way down the road. And I think, people are going to decide what they're going to do, whether they're going to do it or not. And I mean, it's a bargain for people that can't fully use their property right now. It's a huge bargain for people to be able to get that access. So, or people say, I'm fine. I'm going to live out my life happily, blah, 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 the way I am now, fine. But there's
okay.
a bunch of people where this is a good deal. So whatever, but you have to pay to play. So,
Yeah, okay.
I think.
anybody
Dave-
else have any other questions?
Dave is muted. I
trying
think
to
he's
talk.
talking.
He's muted though.
Is there a way to tell him that he's muted? Dave, you're muted. There you go. Yeah,
No?
not
No.
yet.
Maybe at the top of the screen, Dave, if you touch the top of the screen.
You got to move the mouse around.
There's a microphone there.
With an X in it.
Nope.
Not yet, Dave.
Okay. Well,
Sorry, Dave.
So, hey, Steve, just one question on the USDA loan. I noticed you're asking 4,900. Is that because the limit's 5 million?
No, that must not be correct, Todd. We're not, no. When did you see that? Where did you see that?
Well, I just was scanning it on the Cornwall website. There's a USDA grant application,
I think that's a prior one.
and down on page It's the page that says application for federal assistance. Estimated funding, federal $4,920,000.
Yeah, that's the old,
This
that's
is
the old
old?
application. The new applications were applying for the $6.235 million. I don't have the.
Okay, so we probably should get that changed.
Yes, you
right.
should.
Gordon?
Yeah, well, I'll put up the new one.
Okay.
We have not submitted it yet. We will be submitting. Gordon signed some things or did some things, and so he should be submitting within the next, if not today, next day or so.
Well, do you have any idea the timeline of that, a decision from that or no?
Well, it should go fairly, their decision, obviously, well, the ultimate decision is relying upon a positive town meeting vote, but they will give us some kind of feeling whether they can supply funding. I would think soon, because they've already had the application and reviewed everything before.
Right,
The numbers have simply changed. It really doesn't affect their way of thinking, really. It's more to do with justifying the project. Environmentally, it's okay. There's no historic issues, checking off the boxes, so to speak, to do with the grant. Obviously, what comes into play is your special grant you've got an obligation for. So that can come into play. But I would think we would hear fairly quickly.
but they do want a town vote before they decide.
Well, again, they might give us a kind of a warm or cold feeling before that, but ultimately, the ultimate decision, they can't do anything until there's a positive town vote for the
Right.
project. But
Right.
prior to that, they can tell you you're eligible for this, that, or the other thing, and that's what we want to try to get from them.
And that's true for the Johanna Hayes grant as well, right? Does that money go
No.
away if the town?
No, I don't think so.
No, that's nailed down.
Oh, wow.
So let's clarify that. So Steve, what you'll do is you'll try to get a USD update ahead of the town meeting
Yes,
or
we
ahead
will.
of the information meeting. And when I saw Johanna Hayes's chief of staff last night, so they're going to try to get us an update on when that money will be available, if possible. They'll try to get that ahead of our vote in July, which is probably likely. So it's in this current year's federal budget. It's not anything intangible, and it's a question a bit on what they're tracking down is what department will administer that, what department will oversee it. But we should be able to, again, they're going to get on that fairly quickly, so we should have an update for the town meeting about that.
Don, what type of feedback are you hearing about this? I mean, you live there.
I'm sorry, Dave. What type of did you ask that to me or?
Yeah, you. Yeah, what type of feedback are you hearing from neighbors and such? I mean, you live there. When we had our original meeting, everyone was kind of, yes, this could be great, but then as it got more complicated, we got some pushback. What are you hearing?
I'm not trying to be contentious or anything. A lot of people, well, like Todd said, people think, well, why should I hook up to this? My septic's working. That's the general feeling, at least on Lower River Road. No, people aren't necessarily against it at all, and I'm not against it either. They just, they didn't want the site to be next door or across from them or something like that. But pretty much everybody here is set. Obviously the White House by the bridge has a failing septic and has for years. When you say, like last meeting, they said we could put septic in at the library. Well, the library doesn't have water either. There is a well there, and I know it's Russ's well. I don't know if that gets into a bone of contention, but I don't find people really against it. They just think if their septic's working, they're not hooking up to it. That's just the pretty general, but I really, that's at least on this road. I can't say for anywhere else. So, I don't know.
Okay, well, we're gonna vote fairly soon, so we'll have a sense of what the town feels. I did meet a young couple over the weekend who just moved to West Cornwall, and we're really excited about the positive energy that's being generated by the new restaurant and the feeling
Yeah.
that West Cornwall is coming back. So, I mean, that's just, again, another anecdotal setup. But anyway, we'll find out.
The system at the restaurant was unbelievable. I watched them put it in. It's unbelievable what's at that restaurant. And then I never knew there was so much involved, but it's quite a thing. So
You have any idea what it cost?
oh, I don't know. No.
That's
I-
a lot.
Confidential.
Plus, they had the most land of any property in town to do something like that. So
Yeah.
there's no
Yeah.
other big pieces left. So.
Yep.
So, do we have anything more from Steve? You have any more you want to tell us? That would be next on the agenda. Engineers' comments.
At the point, I don't think. Other than, I'm sorry I didn't get the notice of your meeting. I would have liked to have seen you all sort of face to face, but
It's okay. That's okay.
We'll be seeing you.
Yeah. So where are we at, guys? Is that about it for today, or?
I think that's, you have public comment, Todd, probably.
Yeah, I don't see anybody from the public here. Any Public,
Oh, yes,
Public.
there is.
who's here?
You got Judy H, and you got a call-in user who have to
Oh,
identify
Judy.
before they.
Oh, isn't that Steve, the call-in user?
Yeah. I think.
I'm a calling user.
Yeah, so it's just Judy. Judy, so public comment time. Judy, do you have any questions? We
Thank
can't-
you for asking. I'm all set for this evening.
Okay, thank you. So I guess the next time we all get together will be June 11th at the informational meeting, right, Gordon?
Yes,
And that is that a Sunday or a Saturday?
that's a Saturday.
Saturday, June
Saturday
11th
night.
at 7:30. We'll send out some reminders about that. And
Hey, not noise.
I mean, at some point, Gordon, we should talk a little bit about what the format of that's going to be. Pretty much like
Correct.
this.
Right. I mean, we talked, yeah, Steve, what we talked about earlier was, getting a bit of a history of the situation in West Cornwall. And then Todd would handle that, and then some technical details about what's being proposed, and then financial implications.
Yeah.
And then open it up to questions, maybe 10 minutes at the most on each one of those topics, and then questions. So pretty straightforward.
Gordon, what are you hearing? I mean,
Hmm.
you're our mayor. What are you hearing?
Like I said before, I think most people are excited about where the strides West Cornwall's made in the last couple of years, and would like to see that continue. This has been a long time in the making. And there probably can be some people, I mean, I'd be surprised if everybody voted in favor for a variety of reasons, but that's the comments I've heard are, positive about the general direction and things. It's another chapter. We're not, it's not the ribbon cutting ceremony. So. Okay.
All right, I think we've covered what we needed to tonight, and anybody want to propose
Motion to
that we
adjourn.
adjourn? Motion
I
to
propose
adjourn.
to adjourn.
Richard seconds. All those in favor? Aye. All right. Good night, everybody. Great to see you.
Okay.
On the website.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you very much. All right.
Everybody.
Uh,
Take care.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks for
Yep.
coming, Steve. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.